Chapter 37 of the Life of Saint Teresa. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Anne Boulay. The Life of Saint Teresa by Teresa of Jesus, translated by the Reverend John Dalton. Chapter 37. The saint mentions the great benefit she received from other heavenly favors. Many particulars are given respecting her ecstasies and revelations. I am unwilling to mention any more of those favors which our Lord had bestowed upon me, since those which I have already related are too numerous, that they should be thought to have been shown to so wicked a creature. But yet, to obey our Lord who has commanded it, and your reverence also who expects it, I will mention some more things here, for his greater glory. May His Majesty grant that I may serve for the profit of some soul to see, since our Lord has vouchsafed so highly to favor such a wretched creature as I am, how much more will He do for such as serve His Majesty in good earnest, and that everyone may be encouraged thereby to please His Majesty, even in this life He grants us such earnest pledges. But here it is to be observed that in these favors which God bestows on a soul, there is sometimes more, sometimes less glory. For the glory, joy, and consolation which He imparts are so much greater in some visions than in others, that I was quite amazed to find so great a difference of enjoying, even in this life. And sometimes our Lord is pleased, in one vision or rapture, to give so much that it seems impossible to desire anything beyond it in this life. Nor does the soul desire more, nor would she wish for more joy and pleasure. Since our Lord has been pleased to show me how great the difference is in heaven between the glory enjoyed by some and that which is enjoyed by others, I see very clearly that even here also there are no limits set in giving, when our Lord pleases. And so I could likewise wish that there were no limits set in my serving His Majesty, and employing my whole life, strength, and health in this way. I would not lose, through any fault of mine, the least degree of further enjoyment. I even go so far as to declare, that if the choice were offered to me, whether I would rather remain subject to all the afflictions of the world, even to the end of it, and then ascend by that means to the possession of a little more glory in heaven, or else, without any affliction at all, enjoy a little less glory, I would most willingly accept of all those troubles and afflictions for a little more enjoyment, that so I might also understand more of the greatness of God, because I see that he who understands more of Him, loves and praises Him so much the more. I say not but that I should be contented, and should esteem myself very happy to be in heaven, though it were but in the lowest place. For our Lord would thereby show abundance of mercy to me, who had been condemned to so horrible a place in hell. I beseech His Majesty that I may go to heaven, and that He will not consider my great sins. What I say is this, that if our Lord would give me grace to labor much for Him, and if I were able to do it, I would not on any account, however much it cost me, forego the gain of any degree of glory through my own fault. Miserable creature that I am, who had once lost all by my numerous offenses. It is also to be remarked, that in every favor of a vision or revelation which our Lord bestowed upon me, my soul received some great gain, and in some visions the gain was very great indeed. For by seeing Christ our Lord, His admirable and inexpressible beauty has remained imprinted on my mind, and I remember it to this day. For in this case, only once would have been sufficient, how much more so very many times in which our Lord vouchsafed to impart this favor to me. From this sight I also derived another considerable advantage. I was formerly subject to a very great fault, by which much hurt came to my soul, and it was this. Whenever I began to observe that any person had a liking for me and was agreeable to me, I began to have so much affection for him, that my memory would bind me in a manner to be still thinking of him, though yet without any intention at all of offending God. But I would be very glad to see him and to remember him, and consider the good qualities which I found in him. But this was so prejudicial that it did my soul a great deal of harm. But when once I beheld the great beauty of our Lord, I saw none afterwards which could bear comparison with it, nor which was able to occupy my thoughts. For by casting my eyes upon the image of Him who is engraven in my mind, I remained with so much liberty in this respect, that everything which I have seen since this has become loathsome to me, in comparison with the excellencies and graces which I discovered in our Lord. Nor is there any knowledge or any kind of pleasure on which I set a value, in comparison with that which comes by hearing only one single word which proceeds from His divine mouth. How much more so many I have heard? I consider it impossible, unless our Lord should permit it for my sins, that the remembrance of this should entirely leave me, and that any creature should ever so far possess my mind as that I should not instantly be free, by recurring a little of the remembrance of this, my Lord. It happens sometimes with some of my confessors, for I always love those who direct my soul, because I consider they hold the place of God, and methinks it is ever there where I employ my affection the most, that thinking I was secure with them, I was apt to show them extraordinary kindness. But they, being servants of God and cautious persons, would be fearful, lest I should become too much attached to them, though in an innocent manner, and they would sometimes show they were displeased at it. This happened afterwards, when I began to subject myself to be directed and commanded by them, for before I did not bear them so much love. I smiled at myself when I considered how much they were deceived, though I did not always tell them so plainly how little I tied myself to anyone, as I was sure of this in myself. But I told them enough, and when they became more intimate with me, they knew how much I was indebted to our Lord, for these suspicions which they had of me were always in the beginning. I also began to have more love and more confidence in my Lord after I had seen Him, as one with whom I now held a continual conversation. I saw that though He was God He was also man, and that He did not wonder at the weakness of men, for He well knows our miserable nature, which is subject to falls of so many kinds, on account of the first sin, which He came to repair. Although He is my Lord, I may still treat with Him as with a friend, because I know He is not like the grandees we are accustomed to meet with in this world, who place all their greatness in a certain affected authority, and who appoint hours and seasons for an audience, and admit those only to speak to them who are distinguished persons. If any poor man has any business to transact with them, it will cost him many labors and favors before he can get it settled. But what if he has some business with the king himself? Poor people must not presume to come near him, but be content to inquire who are his favorites, and these, we may be sure, are not such as tread the world under their feet, because such persons are accustomed to speak the real truth, and so are not fit for court, and so recommend their affairs to them. There those things are not usual, but they dissemble whatever they dislike, and scarcely do they think of doing such a thing for fear of being disgraced. O King of glory and Lord of all kings, Thy kingdom is not set out with such straws as these, since it has no end. Nor is there any need of third persons to introduce us to an audience with Thee. By our seeing Thee, we instantly perceive that Thou alone deservest to be called Lord. So great is Thy majesty that there is no need of many guards and attendants, in order that we may know Thou art a king. Whereas if any earthly king were left quite alone, he would hardly be known to be a king, for in himself he is no more than other men, and therefore something must appear about him to make men believe that he is the king. And he has so much more need of using these external helps, because otherwise the people would make no account of him. For his appearing so powerful is not from himself, but his grandeur and state arise from those about him. But who is able, O my Lord and my King, to represent that majesty which Thou hast? It is impossible to help seeing that Thou art a great emperor in Thyself, and I am quite amazed to behold Thy majesty. But I am still more amazed, O my Lord, to see united with this majesty the great humility and love which Thou showest to such a wretched creature as myself. For we may speak and treat with Thee about all things, even as we wish, when once we have lost that first amazement and dread which we feel at the sight of the majesty of Thy presence, though there still remains a greater fear of offending Thee, but not the fear of the punishment, for this we do not regard at all, in comparison with the misery which it is to lose Thee. Here are some of the benefits which I have derived from this vision of our Lord, besides other great effects which it leaves in my soul. If the vision be from God, it makes itself understood by the effects, whenever the soul has light. For as I have often said, Our Lord is pleased that it should remain in darkness, and not see this light.